and you look at Donovan Mitchell and you look at the Eastern Conference player in Kawhi Leonard, unbelievable numbers. But what I love is you see one guy on the right who seems to kind of fit everywhere, right? And the guy on the left we're seeing find where he fits best. He knows he could take dudes down one-on-one, but I see a guy really trying to find a fit because we know, I mean, look, the IQ and the skills of the makeup are there for Mitchell.
Yeah, well, and this is his second year.
Yes.
So, you know, I remember my second year, you know, all that stuff that I was doing my first year, when people hadn't seen me that much, everything worked.
Dude, they still couldn't stop that. Come on.
No, but I came back my second year, and the first month of the season, I went to do my thing, and I remember Mo Cheeks like, nah, I ain't going for that move. You know, so
yeah,
I think what Mitchell has gone through this second time around, what he's going through is he's having to develop that third and fourth go-to move. We all have our first and second move, which is like our go-tos. But then the league and the coaches are so good, they take your first option and they take your second option away. So then you have to develop a third and a fourth. And where he's at right now, he's developed his third and fourth. And once he gets really good at those, then he'll be able to come back and really do his thing at 1 and 2.
The other thing, Zeke, is, and I'm curious how difficult this is, and if you notice this, is watching Jazz games, his knowledge of the rest of the floor is something you could tell he's working on and improving. Because he's never had an issue making moves and getting to the rack. But I think it was kind of finding himself, how can I make others better, right? And not just with an assist, but in fighting off screens and making sure to outlet extra plays. You're seeing more. The hustle was never an issue, but how long does it take for you to really be comfortable at the NBA speed and level, understanding what's going on around you?
And this is where great coaching comes in. You know, when you look at Quinn Snyder and the relationship that he has with Mitchell and the trust factor that they have, that they've built, right? He can coach him, and he can not only coach him, but he can critique him, he can criticize him, and he can push him. And Mitchell will take that and learn from it, as opposed to thinking that this guy's trying to, he's trying to, diss me or whatever it is. I think Snyder has done a great job in coaching him. The fact that he's now aware of his second, third, fourth player options as opposed to his first, second, third, fourth individual options. So when he comes off, his first read is, let me help somebody, right? Not let me get mine. His first year, he come off and let me get mine. Now he's coming off and he's saying, let me help you. Let me help you. Now I'll come back and get mine. And that makes a team so much more difficult to guard.
As Zeke, as a coach and as a point guard, which is really coaching the floor, you got to know the talent around you. They have players who can do specific things extremely well, but that team basketball's got to be there more for them, right, than if you're sitting there and you're Westbrook and Paul George. I'm not saying they don't play it and they play great team defense, but one guy can go take over a game. James Harden can go do it for the Rockets. Even though Mitchell can, how much more important does team basketball become specifically with the kind of roster they have?
Well, the battle for the individual player now is with himself and the stat sheet. So when I say with yourself, right? Yourself, you're judged by how I respond and how I play with you as a teammate. But I'm measured by the stat.
All right, Dwayne Casey hot about something. Probably the loss, among other things.
Yeah, Blake had a few choice words for the official also.
Yes. But the game went to the Jazz, 194. A couple of things to point out. Joe Ingles always seems, even if he has a big night, to make the big shot. And Kyle Korver has been monstrous. You heard the stat there. 2 threes made or more in his time with the Jazz to 12-1. And tonight, 19 off the bench.
He comes in and he does what he was brought there to do. Not only give them, great bench point production, but also to give them confidence and to settle that young team down when they get, kind of erratic. He comes in with that championship pedigree, with that old man sage, wisdom that he can give to the young players and say, hey, we're going to be all right. And he makes a shot and he does the right thing at the right time.
Old man sage, is that what you're bringing me on this side?
Yeah, old man sage.
All right, from old man sage to big man Bo.
Look, I know we've talked about the margin for error with this team, and And when you're in some of these tight games, in your opinion, down the stretch, is there one thing that could have swung it the other way?
Yeah, I mean, we just got to be better. I got to be better. A couple turnovers, couple bad possessions. You can't really afford those things against a team like this. So, we just got to be a little bit sharper. But I like the way we came in and competed and fought tonight.
How much did the rebound disparity hurt? Jazz had 55 rebounds. Gobert had 25, matching his career high.
They did a good job on the boards. I think the thing that hurt worse was the free throw disparity. It's tough to beat somebody when you give them 18, 20 more free throws. Everything else other than that looked pretty even at one point in the game as far as three-point shooting, all that. It looked pretty even across the board. Obviously, rebounding didn't, but when they go to the free throw line 20 more times than us, it's we're going to be in a bit of a hole.
How much do they need to get Ish back now with that second unit?
A lot. He just changed the pace. Obviously, gives us another weapon, but just his speed. And ball handling. He does such a good job for us. I mean, we missed him a lot this past month or however long it's been. So we gladly welcome him back.
Did you get a sense earlier on that you guys were playing confident, playing free, and there was a little bit more?
Yeah, I thought we started the game the right way, and we continued that for most of the game. Let it slip here and there, but like I said, I really liked our attitude, our competitiveness, and our edge tonight.
Tonight on NBA TV, Tony Parker makes his first return to San Antonio as a member of the Charlotte Hornets. During the 17 years he spent with the Spurs, he became a 6-time All-Star, 4-time champion. He still holds the franchise record for total number of assists with more than 6,800. So for more on Tony's likely Hall of Fame career and his return to San Antonio, we welcome in Jabari Young, the Spurs beat writer for The Athletic. First and foremost, first thought, your expectation for Tony's return?
It ain't gonna be like Kawhi Leonard's, I'll tell you that. It's not gonna be no booing. Listen, I remember, when I first started covering this team, the love-hate relationship or, the love-disappointment relationship sometimes between the Spurs and Tony Parker was always up and down. Manu and Tim Duncan, they were beloved here. And then Tony, it was just up and down. But I think now that he's gone, fans, you look back on it and say, man, we really appreciated everything he gave us. We know sometimes we didn't like it or, we didn't say, hey, Tony, be better on defense or be better here. But listen, you cannot argue the results that Tony Parker had. I mean, finals, if they would not have as many championships had it not been for Tony Parker. And the one thing I always said when he was here, he was an extension of Greg Popovich on that floor. And that's why Greg Popovich thinks so highly of Tony Parker. But if it was one member of the Big Three who I can always envision to have finished his career elsewhere is Tony Parker. And then tonight, obviously, is all coming full circle. So it's going to be a very emotional night for him. But I think that he'll feel that love once he's introduced for the starting lineup, or not in the starting lineup, but when he's introduced into the game. And then they'll do the video tribute. So it's going to be really, really cool.
Yeah, will you tell us a little bit more about what the team has planned for his return?
Well, they're going to, have a tribute for him, I believe, after the national anthem. And, obviously that's where you're going to see it all, the blood, the sweat, the tears, everything that he gave this organization. Remember the story, Tony Parker wasn't even supposed to be a Spur. When Greg Popovich first saw him, he cut him. He didn't think he had it in him. So, Tony got back into that tryout, in that workout before the draft, and, that's when he sold Greg Popovich. And then look, his first season, he got tossed right in the starting lineup. So, it's one of those relationships where you look back on and you say, man, that was really, really special now that it's all said and done. But Tony, he still lives here. His family still lives here, his wife and kids. So that at the end of the day, when it comes time to retire, he's going to be right back here in San Antonio, and it ain't going to be no time until that jersey is hanging up in the rafters.
What stands out to you, though, about that relationship between coach and player, as we've heard Pop reflect on that relationship in these last couple of days?
Well, what stood out is that, they always had that type of father-son relationship. Obviously Tony has his real dad. His real dad is here tonight. I just got finished talking to him. But, when it comes down to, point guards and head coaches, the point guard and the head coach should always be on the same page because, again, the point guard is the extension of the head coach, on the floor. So, I think Greg Popovich trusted Tony Parker right away to handle those responsibilities. And then you go all the way back to remember when the Spurs they were thinking about and flirting with going to get Jason Kidd, and Tony Parker, he was hot. He was like, look, haven't I done And I think that kind of sparked him to take it even another level. And we've seen over the years what he's meant to this organization. I mean, listen, one time this guy led the league in points in the paint as a point guard. That's kind of unheard of. So, you know, it was very, very special. And again, I'm looking forward to when he's finally introduced and the reaction that he's going to get. It's going to be really, really special. And I think you'll really feel that that love from the Spurs fans, the Spurs themselves, onto Tony Parker, a man who's helped them capture 4 of those 5 championships up there.
Because Tony himself has admitted that he didn't think he would finish his career elsewhere. Do you think that perhaps this could be the night that not only Tony but the franchise and the fans have needed somewhat to celebrate what's behind and fully embrace what's ahead?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think they wanted it to come down to this. I think in the back of everybody's minds, Tony would have loved to have finished his career here, and the Spurs would have loved for him to finish here as well. But, you know, when you have young talent and a guy like DeJounte Murray, you can't hold him back. And it was so interesting. The way Tony Parker came is almost like the way he left. You know, he got put to that starting lineup. Antonio Daniels was taken off the court, and Tony was given that job. And now you got a young cat coming up in DeJounte Murray who said he was too hungry. You know, you saw it. You see the skill level here. He's ready, and then it was just time. And even Tony Parker and Greg Popovich said, listen, this was Tony's idea. He came and said, listen, this is his time now. Go ahead and give him that opportunity. But in the back of his mind, Tony still feels like he wants to play. And in talking to Nick Batum this morning, he's like, listen, he's having fun. He needed this change of scenery, just kind of 1 year to just teach everything that Greg Popovich and the Spurs taught him and pass it on to these young guys here in Charlotte. So, again, you'll see it all come full circle tonight. You'll see that love, that emotion, that appreciation, most of all, of how the Spurs really appreciated everything that Tony Parker gave. Again, 3 of those 5 championships, it does not happen without Tony Parker on that floor.
Well, excellent work as always. You guys can find Jabari's coverage in The Athletic and on social media at Jabari J. Young. Thanks for taking the time, friend.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Tony himself said that he knew where the visitors' locker room was, but that it was different to walk in that direction. Do you remember feeling that way, ever finding your way around for the first time to anywhere else in the arena?
Absolutely. First time I went into the visitors' locker room was when I was with the Minnesota Timberwolves, and I walked in there.
Wow!
I didn't even know where I was.
Never.
Wow. Never went down there once. Never. I don't think I ever crossed a certain point in the hallway. They were just farther down the hallway. I never went there. I stopped at our place and went in the court. I walked in. I looked around. And I went like, "This is where we put the opposing team." It was
not
a rat
nice.
hole. It was really terrible. I was like,
It was. Yes, it was.
It really was, wasn't it?
Yes, it was.
I was shocked. I was like, really?
And very cold, but very warm for this playoff time.
And I chuckled. That was the first time I'd ever been in there. So, yeah, so you find out new things about the place you worked for 13 years.
That's funny. Do you agree that there's been a love-hate relationship with Tony over the years? Because you knew that Timmy was so beloved by all, not only the franchise, but the fans as well. Same thing with Manu. But it's interesting to hear the differing perspective that perhaps that wasn't always the relationship with Tony and his fans.
Well, let's not forget that besides Tim and Manu, there was a guy named David Robinson.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Yeah.
so that
He was pretty good also.
Yeah, so
they loved him.
David's there, who they love, and then Tim comes in, who they love, and Manu, is a favorite. So, and Tony comes in as a 19-year-old. So, you got to wait your turn. You're that next child in line. You got to wait your turn.
Yeah, and I think what happened, too, is that, Tim was always just rock steady, even his rookie year, didn't make mistakes and stuff. I think Pops kind of got with Manu, like, the more I coach him, the worse he gets. I'm just going to have to just let Manu go.
Yeah.
And he's going to do some stuff that's going to, just make me just want to jump up and down, but I'm just not going to do it. So Tony got the brunt of all of that stuff. So Tony was kind of, Pops got on Tony a lot, like, watching him and just watching that whole dynamic. There were a lot of times Tony caught the brunt of Pop's anger because he didn't say much to Timmy and Manu. But I think through all that, he became a better player. As we talked about, he made mistakes early, and his game was kind of ratty. His jump shot wasn't there, and he took some shots and did some stuff. But slowly but surely, Pops just kind of molded him and just kept him going in this direction, but taking his game from here to here. Talked about him being leading the paint, or leading the league in paint points. That guy could finish around the rack. He was an amazing finisher of the basketball for a little guy in there. But Yeah, so I think, I think sometimes his road is a little bit more rugged than Tim and Manu's. And probably he had more, I can tell you what, he had more headbutting with Pops than any of those guys did.
And you know what's funny is I was in San Antonio just a couple of weeks ago, and Coach Pop told us prior to our TNT broadcast that Tony had called him recently and said that he was way too easy on the young guys. He's like, that's not how you treated me. What's happened here? Softened up a little bit.
Remember, early on when he first came in to join that team, Pop molded him into running the show and get the ball to these other people. Because on that same team, besides David Robinson, Tim Duncan, you still had Smitty, was on that team back then. Steven Jackson was on the team back then. Manu was on the team. So it wasn't Tony's job to, I have to add my points to this group. This group's going to get points.
Right.
You get the ball to them at the right time. You run the show, you run the break, and let's start to develop you as a defensive player at the other end of the floor. And then as guys moved on, and then it became a little more scoring burden on Tony, and that's what happened.
Well, Game Time continues after the break with Steph Curry's 11 from behind the arc on Sunday, and who our crew would trust to take one shot with the game on the line. Don't go away.